All right, matchmakers. This is, I want to say, the most fired up podcast I have had in a long time. I absolutely love this is one of my favorite things I do. But this episode, like, I don't know, I felt like something was like coming through me in this episode. And so I want to start this podcast with a question. And, how have you ever noticed that like we treat like decisions we're trying to make like it's the final exam? Like, if I don't get this answer right, I'm going to fail in my life. But it's one, but it's only like one answer. Like, there's no right in life. There is not one right answer. There's not one wrong answer. And somewhere, like, we have this invisible judge with a red pen waiting to like tell us if we've passed or if we failed. I remember when I was taking my personal training exam and it was all computerized. And so you're like, pressing on the answers. And then it's like, as you're going through, and then you're like that final answer, you're just like, deep breath before you press like, submit. But that's not how life is, right? Like, I want to know, like, who appointed this judge? Because I have this judge in my life too, right? But this invisible judge that we've made in our head, it's like the word of God, right? It is the gospel. But somewhere along the way, a lot of us stopped living our lives and we started trying to ace it, right? Trying to be like whatever we did the first time we were gonna freaking nail it. And I think that's why so many amazing, smart women, capable women are just stuck spinning around the axle, trying to get it right. And over the last few weeks, I have shared with you the women that I've recognized of who I've coached over the last 2 decades, right? There was Brenda. She was exhausted, convinced that she'd rest when everything got on her list got done. Spoiler, never everything is never done, right? Then we had Faye, who has plenty of people around her, but not a lot of real, like IRL connection because, many are waiting for someone else to make that first move, to reply to the text, to say, let's meet for coffee and here are the actual dates. And next week, we're going to meet Tammy, who accidentally turned fun into yet another thing to be perfect at, right? So today, we're meeting Iris. And Iris, she's waiting for someday, right? Raise your hand if you're waiting for someday. You told yourself someday, right? You've researched the shit out of it. The new workout, the side hustle, the move, the class, the trip you've been planning to take, lists, notes, screenshots, podcast queued up, a pros, a cons list. You've researched, if researching burnt calories, girl, you would have a six pack abs, right? Here's the thing. Iris is not lazy. She's thoughtful. She's waiting till she's sure, waiting until the time is perfect, waiting until someone else agrees that it's the right call, the right time. And maybe that's you too. And I get that. Like there are other decisions that like painting my house. I'm we've been circling the same four colors for I don't even know how long, and now we just have to flip and execute, right? So years ago, I had a client who wanted to sleep better. And she was running on like less than 6 hours a night and she was exhausted. And I was like, okay, let's try this. Instead of just passing out on the couch, scrolling or watching TV until you pass out, let's just set a bedtime so that we start to condition your body so that it's starting to realize like, okay, sleepy time is coming, right? And it's time to go to bed. And so, a few weeks later, we meet and I said, give it a shot for 2 weeks and then look, just tell me what happens, right? Like, no, no, no pressure, just give it a shot. Next week, I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, well, I'm still like, trying to figure out like what's the right time to go. I'm like, oh, okay. Then next session, did you give it a shot? No. And then the section after that, she's like, well, I researched it, and then she said, I saw this supplement online. What do you think about that? Or I learned the sleep hack from a podcast. And it's like one day, like it hit me that like she wasn't collecting solutions. She was collecting certainty, right? She wanted to know that if she tried to go to bed at a certain time, it was absolutely positively going to work. Right. And the thing about health, this is it's a blessing and a curse, right? I love that health is so fluid that one thing I give to client A isn't going to work for client B. And the thing I give for client B isn't going to work for client A. And maybe they might not work for both, but here's the thing. We found out something that's not going to work. But it's a lot of trial and error, right? It's a lot of trial and error. And, certainty, I can't guarantee certainty is going to show up. There's certain things I know that, like, if you eat like an asshole, you're going to gain weight. I can guarantee that. Other things I cannot, right? Some people can get away with lifting 1 day a week. Some people can need 3 to 4 days a week, right? That's what I can't guarantee. But I know that if we give it a shot, we'll learn some things. We'll learn some things. And so, she still pops up into my feed every now and then, and I check in on her. But guess what? She's still researching. She's still waiting for someday. And I don't tell you this story because I think she was wrong. I tell you this story because we've all been her, right? We've all like picked something in your life that you need to air quoting here for those of you guys not watching the video, research, right? So maybe you've done it with your health or your money or a friendship or a career change or moving, whatever. And then something that you've just wanted to do for years, you just kept gathering the information because it feels productive, right? Like I got this whole file folder full of shit for whatever it is that you're trying to do. And sometimes we're not looking for information, we're just looking for permission. And so, back when Philip and I were dating, my dream was to go to Hawaii. And I was like, you know what? But if I go to Hawaii, I'm going for 2 weeks. And he was like, Kim, you don't go to on vacation for 2 weeks unless it's your honeymoon. And I was like, well, I'm like, I'm going for 2 weeks. You could stay a week and I'm going to stay another week. So, let's fast forward a few weeks and we're talking with friends and Hawaii comes up and one of the friends was like, "Oh yeah, if you're flying that far, you totally need to stay 2 weeks." And I like rolled my eyes and I was like, "Boy." And Philip's like, I think they're right. Maybe we do need to stay for 2 weeks." And I was like, my opinion clearly needed a peer review. Right? We still laugh about it today because we've gone on several 2 week vacations. Hell, we've even taken a month of a vacation. So it's so many of us do the same thing, right? How many experts or podcasts or reviews or Google searches or people need to agree with us before we just say, I got it. I'm going to try it. Right. And so if today's episode is hitting you a little close to home, I made this quiz exactly for this, and it'll show you like what parts of your life have quietly like sunk or have been stuck in that like someday list. The link is in the show notes. And so go take it and then come back and tell me where you landed, right? Are you a Brenda, a Tammy, a Faye, Iris? And then here's what I've come to believe, right? Life isn't grading you. You're grading you. You're the invisible judge. And life is inviting you to experiment. Like, not every decision has to be forever. Not every choice has to be perfect. Sometimes you just need to start collecting some real experiences instead of the imaginary outcomes. I recently saw a sticker that said, all of the things that I've imagined in my head have never come true. Right? How many of us have like, catastrophized so many things and we never even tried it because our brain has told us the story that it's going to be horrible. So why even try? But ask yourself, like, like, let's just go lean into the possibility. Maybe the experiment works, but maybe it doesn't. Either way, you've learned something. You've moved closer to where you want to be than you were yesterday, right? You didn't fail, you found out. And, which brings me back to someday, right? Someday isn't a date, right? It is a place where dreams go to wait or hell die, right? It's where, oh my God, the full books that you wanted to write, or the conversations that you wanted to have, or the business you wanted to start, or the naps you said you're going to take after you get your list done. So here's what I know. Someday it's just a way to put off, just a nice way to say procrastinate, right? It makes us feel good. Like someday isn't a date on the calendar. So I want to give you your experiment for the week, right? It's not going to be a giant leap, right? It's not going to be this trust fall into someone else's arms. It's just, what's one thing that you've been calling someday that you could actually experience instead of researching. Like go into that big pile of research that you have over there, pull one thing out, and then, do it. Like don't open another, browser tab or chat GPT it or ask another person or make another pros and cons list. Just pause and ask yourself, like, whatever it is that you're pulling out, are you asking for information or are you asking for permission? So it's like, hey, set that bedtime, drink that extra glass of water, call that friend that you've been meaning to call for X number of months. Like, just do it because life isn't asking us to get it right. It's inviting us to be curious, right? And curiosity is like one of my all-time favorite words. And, one of my favorites TV shows is Ted Lasso, right? And most of us have seen it, but most of us have seen the scene about um, where it says be curious, right? I challenge every single one of us to get a little curious, curious about what could possibly happen, right? So many of us are so stuck on certainty, right? We want that certainty. But what if we just paused and we got curious and we leaned into what the possibility could be? And I know for many of you, this could be a big mindset shift. And I'm going to go a little woo-woo here. And I think many of you have heard me tell this story before. And I can't think of the name of the book off the top of my head right now, but I will Google it and I will link it in the show notes. But this is right in the very beginning of my kind of like whole mindset shift, my mindset journey. Um, so working with this mindset coach, and there was a book that had like experiments about just curiosity, right? Like stop, I was a big catastrophizer. Like I was like, this, if I do this, the world's gonna end. Fire, brimstone, blah. So she had me read this book, and it has like these little, experiments about just kind of like what you think about, you bring about, right? So if you said that to me, I'm gonna say maybe 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. But now I realize it is what you think about, you bring about. So the first experiment was you had to find purple flowers. So I'm reading this book and I'm like, of course, I'm like the whole time rolling my eyes. And then I'm reading the book and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to look for these damn purple flowers. So then I look for the purple flowers and then I'm like, but wait, it's February in Boston. Hello, I'm not going to say a damn purple flower, right? And in the book, it says, suspend belief, suspend possibility, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking that I have to look out my window and see a purple flower, but that's not the case. I ended up looking at, so then I'm folding laundry probably a few weeks later, and what pops up on the TV but a purple flower, right? So that's where I want you to go. I want you to think about what a purple flower, what purple, I'm hopeful that if I say purple flower, it might pop up in the most unexpected place because many of us, we think things have to be laid out in a certain way, right? It's like it has to be step one, two, three, four, five. And I think the biggest challenge that many of us face is that, especially, when it comes to, I'm going to do weight loss because that's my jam, right? When it comes to weight loss, we have been so conditioned, especially us ladies in our 40s and 50s, that it's like, I need to go to the gym a certain amount of time. I need to eat a certain way. I need to do this. And like the list is like endless of all the things you need to do, but life. And so you're like, I can't get it all done. So how am I, there's a sign where if we suspend possibility and we give ourselves the one thing, right? That was a challenge this week. So, I see it all the time. I have clients we have busy weeks. So we're like, I can't do 10 things on my list, but you can do one. So instead of saying someday when the kids go back to school, or someday when work is less busy, or someday when, if we give ourselves permission to do one thing, right? Give ourselves permission to break free of how it has to look. And so the other story that I think about when I get myself kind of like all in the like I can't get it done. I have too much. There was a story about like how like a flood was coming and God's like a woman a person was like God's going to save me. So then, the water start to rise and the person sends a car and it says a van full of people. It's like, hey, get in the van. We're all getting out of town. It's like, oh no, God's gonna save me. Right. So then the van drives off and then like the water rises a little bit more. Then like a boat comes by and the boat's like, God's gonna save me. So thanks for the ride. And goes by. So now the flood waters get a little bit higher. Now he's on his house, on the roof of his house, and a helicopter comes by with a ladder. He's like, no, I'm all set. God's gonna save me. Right. So then he drowns and he's at the pearly gates and he's like, he goes, I can't believe I drowned. And God's like, I sent a car, a boat, a helicopter. What else did you need? That was me trying to save you. Because we get so vapor locked on to how it has to look, right? And so here, where as an iris, I'm challenging you to suspend how you think it has to happen. Suspend researching the shit out of it and actually ask herself, like, do I really need more information or am I looking for permission to allow myself to do this differently? Right? Because life isn't asking us to get it right. It's inviting you to get curious. Right? And if you've been and that's what I really want a lot of us to live with, like be curious because well, two things. Be curious, right? What if this worked, right? Versus what if this didn't, right? What if this worked? And then have the courage to follow through, right? Because those are two things that have to go side by side. I need to be curious, but I also need to have the courage to take the step forward. And so, if you've been following these series, next week I'm going to talk to you about Tammy. And if you've ever turned a hobby into performance review, yes, my mouth is working. If you ever turn a hobby into a performance review, you're going to see for yourself. You might see yourself in her next week. So, until next time, trust your gut a little bit more, Google, Chat, GPT a little less and choose curiosity with a side of courage over certainty. All right, Magic Makers, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if this has left you with any kind of thoughts, feels, whatever, do me a favor, holla back. I love hearing from you. So you can always hit me up on the socials. You can shoot me an email. I love hearing from you. All right, have a fabulous day, and I will be on the mic next week.